Good morning and happy homecoming, Sooner Nation. In a couple of hours, right behind us, Kansas State will be in the stadium and Week Wake will be underway in Norman, Oklahoma. Guys, how you doing?
I'm great. We're back. It has been forever since we've been here.
Joe's back.
I know.
Joe,
what's up, guys?
We missed you, buddy.
I missed you guys.
Yeah, so now that we are finally back in Norman, it's about time we start talking some more Sooner football. It's just been a weird time period.
It has
for
been.
us.
Yeah, I'm really cold right now, so I'm going to power through.
But it's going to be hot later.
It is, like we were saying earlier, it's the time of the year when it's kind of cold in the morning and at night, but it's hot in the middle of the day. So later at the game, it's going to be really nice weather, almost 80 degrees, I think, and sunny. But right now, it's a little chilly.
It's kind of weird to think, like, where we were at in the season the last time they played at home. I mean, it was in September still, you know.
Yeah.
So the team is just completely different since the last time we were at home. It's really weird to think about.
It's funny because in a couple of days, we're going to hear the same Championship November narrative all month long.
Yeah.
But, hey, that's what it is. But OU is back at home, and they're coming back after a very impressive performance against TCU, winning by a wide margin after a bye week and a coaching change. A lot of good things and some bad things had happened in that game, but for the most part, it was something the Sooners could really build off. Josh, I know one of the biggest topics that you and I and everyone here have talked about all season has been that run game. Without Rodney, who's going to step up? Now there might not be Trey. Now it might just be like Kyler. What's going on here? What are your thoughts from that last game, especially with how well they performed?
Yeah, I really thought that the TCU game, in a lot of aspects, was very encouraging. Going forward, I feel a lot better about the team than I did after Texas game. Even some of the wins before Texas, I was kind of concerned. The run game, like you said, easily the best it's been since the Rodney injury. You know, ever since that injury, Kyler has been the best rusher on the team, and that's not going to win you a championship. Your quarterback being your leading rusher. You had Sermon and Brooks both go for over 100 yards. I believe it was Baylor last year, right? It was the last time they did that.
Last time that happened.
So I mean, they hadn't done that, you know, in about a full calendar year.
Right.
Impressive. It was Kenny Brooks. You know, he had that huge spring game, and it seemed like he would do nice things whenever he would get the ball, but he never really had a game where he was getting significant carries. They let him have the ball. He ran the ball 18 times, 168 yards. If he's a legit option, him and Sermon could be a good one too. Maybe Kenny Brooks should actually maybe be the starter, and Sermon kind of the number 2 option.
I mean, he might have to be.
We don't know what Sermon's.
Trey Sermon right now.
Yeah, he got hurt in the game, and we have heard nothing all week. I assume he's going to be okay. I don't know. We'll find out, I guess. But if those two guys actually are able to run the ball and they actually have a run game to go with Kyler and all the weapons he has, defense maybe going to play a little better on the stretch. They look decent. Hey, why not? You know, the team's still got everything out in front of them. Schedule's pretty favorable. I don't know. That was a really encouraging game, I thought, against TCU, and the run game was a big part of why I'm so encouraged.
Like you said, the schedule will be pretty favorable till later in the year, which is going to be nice, especially for today. They might get to see some new things with that. But speaking of new things, Madeline, a new coach, a new week, very different, but not bad. What were your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think what stood out to me most in that game, besides the run game, like Josh said, which obviously was phenomenal and really an encouraging sign for Sooners fans, was the halftime adjustments. That is something, personally, on the defensive side, we did not see a lot of with Mike Stoops as defensive coordinator. We just didn't. If you look at Michael Collins, backup quarterback for the Horned Frogs, he came in after Sean Robinson was just playing really, really bad. End of the second half, he went 4 for 5, 89 yards, 2 touchdowns. As we all know, the Horned Frogs scored 21 unanswered points, and the Sooners just had a 4-point lead going into the half. So that's when you say, okay, they have all the momentum right now. They're at home. What is the defense going to do to step up? Second half, Collins went 3 for 12, 53 yards, and an interception. And as we know, TCU only scored 3 more points in a field goal. They couldn't even get in the end zone again. So that kind of momentum stopping is something, like I said, that we never saw under Mike Stoops. We just didn't. He didn't know how to make adjustments in order to stop the momentum of opponents. That's just something he didn't do. And especially last season, you know, that was a big problem for the Sooners. And I saw a little bit of adjustments in the first couple games of the season. I said, okay, and I remember saying it on GamedayU, like, I've seen some adjustments not only during halftime, but just kind of in the middle of games. I've seen them kind of adjust a little bit around their opponents, but then that completely disappeared. We saw against Texas, they couldn't do anything against Ellinger. They just didn't know how to fix the defense to kind of combat that. But that's something that we saw in the TCU game.
Props to Ruffin McNeil, man. We have to say it, right? I mean, that guy was unbelievable.
We knew going in, TCU's offense isn't great, and we thought that this could be a chance for the defense to play a lot better. It was better in almost every aspect. They got a turnover, could have had more. They tackled. Secondary looked good. Everything looked better. Like, pretty much every aspect of the defense looked better.
Yeah, 12 first downs allowed. That's the fewest they've given up in the past 10 games. third fewest allowed points in the Lincoln Riley era. All great numbers all the way around for a Ruffin McNeil-led defense. Very impressive.
And I think this is a good point that Madeline touched on. And we were talking about this earlier, about keeping them out of the red zone in that second half. Because what was the stat again about how poorly OU is doing?
They finally got a red zone stop. First time.
They'd never done
time.
that.
They've had one the entire
Missed
season.
field goal, but you know.
Hey, that's part of getting a red zone stop.
You'll take it.
Made him kick a mid-range field goal.
It counts, right?
College
true.
kickers, man.
So overall, pretty impressive performance, but the season goes on. We'll see more about that today, but let's keep going. Colin.
Yes.
Something that people, you would say, undervalue,
Yes.
underappreciate is
Yes.
our quarterback.
Yes,
Is that
Kyler
right?
Murray. He's
Why?
pretty good. So this is the first time that I've actually printed out my notes in the past 3 shows. So I have on my very first
right.
line, it says, Kyler Murray is good.
Verbatim.
He's
That's what
pretty
it
good.
says.
I would agree with that statement, Colin, and here's why. Kyler Murray, every single time he goes out there, I don't think we talk enough about what this kid is doing. Look, obviously Tua in Alabama right now is getting all the headlines as far as quarterback play. Will Grier was the most hyped quarterback in the Big 12 coming into the season. But Kyler Murray, every time he steps foot on the football field, is unbelievable, okay? He got the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Week. That's the 4th time he's done it this season. That ties Baker Mayfield's single-season record. And
Baker
why did
who?
he do that? Oh, that Baker Mayfield dude that's playing for the Cleveland Browns. How did he do that? 19 of 24, 79.1% completion
Efficient.
percentage. Yes, that's called efficiency, my friend. 213 yards, 4 touchdowns, also ran.
First down
for
average.
51 yards. You knew where I was going with it. All about the first down average. On top of that, just look at this guy's season perspective, okay? He's accounted for 30 touchdowns and only 4 turnovers. That is very, very impressive in its own right because we praise Baker Mayfield so much for staying away from turnovers, right? He's done exactly that, but we don't give Kyler Murray those props, especially with the way that he plays. He's thrown for at least 3 touchdowns in the past 6 games and thrown for at least 4 in the past 3. And yet here he goes, week in and week out, and we're always talking about these kind of storylines. The running game looked great. The defense is finally starting to turn around. And Kyler Murray's just chilling there like, I've won like 49 games and I've lost 1 in my life. And no one talks about it. It's just so impressive to me what this guy does. And we talk about the numbers. The leadership he's showing me, I will be the first one to admit I doubted what he could bring to the table as far as a leadership perspective, as far as vocally. I knew he could lead by example, but he's really starting to accept his face as the football program right now. I think that Kyler, as he goes through the season, we won't necessarily talk about his stats and the way he leads, but at the end of it all, and when you go 3, 4, 5 years down the road, one day we're going to be talking about Kyler Murray as this enigma that set foot on OU's football field and became a legend in the blink of an eye. Almost like a Trae Young in my perspective as far as OU basketball. He's just going to be gone in the blink of an eye, and I don't think we'll really get a chance to appreciate what he's brought.
Yeah, Colin, it's interesting that you say that Kyler Murray leads by, his words now. Because I remember at a Monday press conference early on in the season, he specifically said, because someone asked him about his leadership style, and he said, I just try to lead by example. Like, I just try to be a leader in the locker room. But you've really seen him grow into this leadership role, and almost like no one can be Baker Mayfield in that level of leadership. But almost he's kind of grown into that. He doesn't have as big of a personality as Baker. Obviously there's a lot of differences there, but you've really seen him kind of grow into that and be more of a vocal leader, which I think this team really, really needed.
Did you see the video mashup where during the TCU game, Kyler's standing on the sidelines and he's yelling, "I like it," and then they put the Kirk Cousins things, "You like that? I like it.
Saw that.
You like that." That was really funny, but I want to see Kyler Murray continue to do that as the season rolls on.
Yeah, I completely agree that I don't know if it's because you're coming off Baker Mayfield, who was so good and had the big personality, or what it was, but he's definitely undervalued.
Yeah.
I mean, his season is just as good as what Baker did last year.
A lot of his numbers are even better.
Yeah,
than
this is his
Baker's.
first year in the system. I don't know if it's because you're coming off Baker, but do Sooner fans remember what the quarterback play was like before Baker?
Yeah.
I mean, you had short night Blake Bell seasons. Landry Jones was very up and down. He holds all the records. He's very up and down.
Yeah.
Didn't win a lot. Really since Sam Bradford up until Baker, it was kind of sketchy. So, what Kyler's doing, I feel like, definitely he needs to be appreciated a little more because he's only probably going to play this one season.
Yep.
He's having an amazing season. He's going to be in New York, probably Heisman runner-up behind Tua. I mean, that could still change, but as of now, I would say pretty firmly, he's having an amazing year, and he's not getting the credit that he probably deserves.
Baker Mayfield went down as the most efficient passer in the history of college football. Kyler Murray is not only on pace to break that record, he's on pace to obliterate it. it's time we start talking about this guy as one of potentially, could we say, an OU great at the quarterback position? I don't know.
It's hard to do that 1 year, but he's making a push.
It's hard, but
he's making a push.
He's making a case.
When you say obliterate, it's funny because it's a pretty true statement with who OU has left. You're going to have Tech, both the Kansas teams, and yes, you'll have West Virginia, but, I mean, it's not like any of us don't expect Kyler to produce the same exact numbers against like 2 of those teams.
Also got Oklahoma State at home.
So, yeah, and they have not been very good this year. We'll refrain from using any other language. But, yeah, so I'm just kind of curious about this because, as you guys said, one of the biggest things about Baker last season was the fact that everyone said that this guy is a natural-born leader and everyone is drawn to him. And that's true. We all can attest to that. We've all seen it. We've all covered the games. We've all seen him in the press conferences. But do you think that maybe we don't get that kind of feel from Kyler just because he isn't as alluring of a personality to the media, or what? I know it's kind of a loaded question.
I do. I think the personality plays a big part. He's much more, we all know, he's much more low-key than Baker was. He likes to, he likes to kind of do his talking with his play a lot more. And not that Baker didn't also, but obviously we all know how Baker Mayfield is, and he loves to talk, and he pretty much every single game there was some kind of storyline. Daddy's going to show you what's up today and all that. It was every game there was something, the flag plant. And Kyler doesn't do that kind of stuff, and I think that's a big part of it for sure.
Kyler's not a flag plant guy. He's not a I'm your daddy guy. He's just a go out there and get it done guy. And if bad things come his way, if he gets backlash, he's just going to kind of let it roll off his back because that's who he is. And it's a really different dynamic, and I do think it does play a big part into the perception. When you have this guy like Baker Mayfield who's super cocky and he's planting those flags, it's kind of like, wow, this guy is really good. Yeah. When you have a guy who can just be really chill and be really low-key but still produce amazing numbers, it might just come off as different. That's just how we perceive these people that we don't really know personally. We're just mostly watching on the football field.
Yeah, and it's funny because, he doesn't talk a whole lot, but you still get like that. He knows he's the man, and he feels it, and he's still probably the cockiest, most confident guy on that team, even if he doesn't always say it.
I mean, he's unbelievable.
He knows he's the man.
Not only as a player, but just how he continues to win. It doesn't matter who you are, a coach, a player, if you're a team manager, if you're a part of that many wins, you're going to have some confidence to yourself. But, even on top of that, I would just say as far as the comparisons, I think there's a little bit of a Baker hangover, not only because of what he did with his voice, but how he played on the field. To me, they're 2 very different players as far as the way that they play on the field. When Baker Mayfield was out there, you think of the times where, he's running into the end zone against TCU, and he throws that guy down, even though Dimitri Flowers is clearly blocking him still. Baker Mayfield is all over the place, stiff-arming people, getting up and staring them down. But when you go back, I would just even use just that past TCU game for an example. When you look at Kyler Murray, he's not doing Baker-like things. He's not trying to stiff-arm people, juke them out. He evades defenders and then scoots out of bounds. He's not calling people in. He's not directing traffic. He's just rolling out and seeing what he has, making the best out of his opportunities. Kyler Murray is a very, very different player, not just leader. We talk about the leadership perspective. The way he plays the game is such a different manner that it makes you kind of appreciate what he brings to the table because you don't see that. You haven't seen that in years, really, from the quarterback position.
Hey, he's a different animal, but he is still producing the same results, exactly the same results, and 6-1 is still 6-1. But that will conclude our talk about TCU and OU overall. When we come back, we're going to break down what OU needs to do to get that 7-1 record, and we'll have today in Sooner history. Stay with us.
Today's Sooner football history is a Halloween edition, and it's fitting because OU put on a scary performance in 2015. It didn't need to be dark outside for the Sooners to spook the Jayhawks as OU led 38-7 at halftime. OU was not done scoring, but Kansas was. The Sooners would nearly double that score by the end of the game. Baker Mayfield was almost perfect, going 27 of 32 for 383 yards and 4 touchdown tosses before backup QB Trevor Knight got some late work. 183 of those yards and 1 of those touchdowns were for Sterling Shepard, who had a monster game with 11 receptions. Kansas had more rushing attempts than total rushing yards, but Samaje Perine, Joe Mixon, and Alex Ross combined for 238 rushing yards, absolutely scorching the Jayhawk defense. OU ended up winning by a final score of 62-7, gaining 710 yards in the process and amassing 50 points for their 3rd consecutive game, which makes Halloween of 2015 another day to remember in Sooner football history. Boo.
Not exactly the best performance OU had last year, falling down 21-7 to an unranked Kansas State at their place. But amazingly, with the emergence of a very good Rodney Anderson game, the Oklahoma Sooners still pulled back and won that one. But we can't deny that that game last year for that team, who was way more talented, was definitely not where it should have been. That was not a game that should have been that close, like many of OU's games. And it's a point of reason for this week that this team, even though the record shows 3-4, is still a team to be reckoned with. With that being said, Josh, lead us off. What do you think about today's game?
Last year's game was probably like as least satisfying of a win as OU could probably ever have. K-State wasn't that good last year.
No.
And, they got tore up a little bit by K-State's offense, and that's something that probably should never happen to anybody. So they're probably going to come in a little hungry today. Similar to the Iowa State game earlier this year where we were kind of like, they probably really want to get this game. I think they probably really want to beat K-State pretty bad. Because last year's game, they looked bad. That was a rough one. If Rodney doesn't go crazy, they might lose that game in Manhattan.
They do.
A game they have no business losing. So, as far as today, I'm looking at the secondary because the secondary is coming off a good showing. I mean, they had a turnover, had some good pass deflections, could have had 3 interceptions if they learned how to catch. Probably need to take some drills catching the ball because Khalil Houghton and Buki both were just brutal dropped interceptions. Buki would have been a pick 6.
Jeez.
But K-State, looking at their offense here, it's not very good. And this should be an opportunity. Outside of Isaiah Zuber, they have nobody with more than 16 catches. So the secondary should be able to lock in on him, I would feel like, and kind of shut down the pass game. If the secondary has a bad game, then I'm kind of like, yikes. I can't imagine when they play somebody like Will Greer later in the season. This should be a game, I feel like, where they should be able to build on how good the secondary was. You said he was 3 for 12 in the second half last week. They should be able to build on that today and continue to play better. Trey Brown is a guy who's really starting to emerge. Motley's having moments. He looks really bad, then he looks really good. Trey Norwood's solid, So I'm looking at the secondary. Should be a good game for them today. I'm looking for a big game from the secondary. I feel like it's a good matchup for them.
It's one thing that you mentioned about just like the secondary here. For the most part, looking at just like facts about Kansas State, their starting quarterback's not going to be in there, and for the most part, the guy replacing him, which we'll get into later, is not exactly the best at this. So we'll talk more about that, but I just wanted to bring that up. So Kansas State, middle of the pack in nearly every statistical category as a team in the Big 12. Third down conversion, first down conversion, literally everything. So that will be a very interesting thing to follow later on. But Madeline, running. We can't get away from it.
We can't get away from it. Joe, you were on the show last week, so I'll fill you in. We talked a lot about the running backs for TCU. Shewell Onalua, Darius Anderson, 2 guys who run the ball a lot.
You don't think I watched you guys?
You watched us?
I did. For parts of it, but I was really tired because it was 8 in the morning. But let's keep going.
Well, I appreciate the love. Well, in case you forgot, we talked a lot about those 2. We said they're probably going to have big games against the Sooners. They did not. Guess who the leading rusher was for TCU?
Michael Collins.
It was Michael Collins. How many yards did he have?
I think I read it, so I didn't want to say it.
How many yards did he have?
I don't know.
Wait,
17.
Wait.
I said 17.
17, okay.
Oh, is that too low?
Over 50.
He did not have over 50.
I was closer than you.
I'll just give you the answer. 36 yards. Their leading rusher had 36 yards. Onalua, 34.
Dang.
Anderson, 32. So that was the biggest. I mean, the thing that impressed me the most with the OU defense was just their ability to stop the run, because it's something that they really struggle with. If you look at the Army game, I mean, Army almost won that game because their ability to just, win the battles in the trenches and run the ball super, super well. So that was impressive. So going off of that, I think today they need to stop Alex Barnes.
Yeah.
Kansas State running back.
Sure.
He's 6'1". When Kansas State beat Oklahoma State handily, they scored 31 points, had 4 touchdowns. Alex Barnes had all 4 of them, 181 yards. This guy is big. He can run the ball, and I think he is their only shot at winning.
And it's crazy because that's not an isolated occurrence. Barnes has had pretty big games like that throughout this entire season. So one thing I'm curious about, because everyone is trying to compare this to Army in the way with running, what do you think about time of possession being a factor in this game? Kansas State is 4th in the Big 12, and it's a pretty close margin between the first 4 teams. And given a player like Alex Barnes, you can easily manipulate that. So do you think that's something that Kansas State might be looking to do today, or?
Absolutely. I mean, I think all teams probably will look at that a little bit and be like, okay, if we have a good run game, what can we do against this defense? Because, as we could see from the product on the field, that really hurt the Sooners. And they said afterward, a lot of them said, it was actually really hard. The offense said, I hated, just standing on the sidelines for the whole game, even though They scored quickly a lot of the time. It sucked for them. They didn't like it. So I definitely think that teams like this, where they have, a couple good running backs, a running quarterback, will look at it and be like, hey, we need to run the clock out here on these guys.
All right. Take it away.
All righty, here we go. This is interesting for me because I'm going with an early call out here in B block. We don't normally do this.
Please don't read off your
Against
paper,
protocol.
by the way.
I'm not going to read off my paper. There are some very strongly worded messages there. This will be the first time that Oklahoma's been at home in front of their fans in about a month. You look at your peeking over there, Josh?
I was wondering where you were going.
Yeah.
I saw the first line. I was like, what's happening?
Here's what's difficult about the situation. I'm going to go back to he who shall not be named, Mr. Mike Stoops.
You just named him, so.
I know, because I don't really care. I will say his name.
I wasn't sure who you were referring to, so I'm glad you did.
You're welcome.
I was like, I don't know.
Look, OU fans, after the Texas game, the backlash that I saw towards Mike Stoops was one of the most ferocious things I've ever seen as far as a fan base. I mean, it was relentless, period. And here's where I think we don't talk about enough. We talked a whole lot after the whole decision about Lincoln Riley. We talked about administration, Jim Gallagly. We talked about the coaching staff. We talked about the players. We didn't talk about the fans and their role that they played in this decision. You're kidding yourself if you don't think that the fans played a role in the firing of Mike Stoops. Listen to me when I say this, Sooner fans. You got a man fired. And what you really don't want to hear is that the players are pretty PO'd at you about it. There's a divide growing between the fan base and the players. And the fan base may not know that, but the program certainly does, because the fans took someone that meant a lot to this program, and after one game, even though it was built up over time, after a storm struck after that one Texas game, that man is gone, and he was very close to a lot of the players on this team, a lot of the coaches on this team. They did not want to see him go, and they know why he's gone. It's because of the fans. So now, finally them returning home in front of the 86,000 plus that will be in the stadium, my message to them would be this. It's time to hold up your end of the bargain. You've called for this for a very long time, and now what your wish has commanded is something that these players and coaches were not comfortable with. A blue blood program does not make a switch mid-season like this. Almost ever. Now that you got your wish, you need to fulfill the players and coaches' wishes. You need to actually start showing up, being loud. Now, granted, a lot of the people in the stands might be in a casket tomorrow. But that's being said, students need to actually start sitting there and being engaged in the football game. The fans that are there shouldn't just be there for one big social get-together. You got a man out of a job. And this is the first time that they're going to be in front of you since that awful transition. I want to see how Sooner fans respond. Typically, we sit up here and we're like, oh, you need to be louder. You have to cheer more. No, you need to sit out there and you actually need to support your team, because that's the biggest thing that the Sooner fans have lacked in this season. Support. It's been a bunch of fake
I'm excited
words.
for when Kansas State kicks a field goal to go up 3-0, the fire Ruffin McNeil tweets.
It's
that are gonna
ridiculous.
Be on Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
I hear you. I want to defend the fans a little bit because, we all respect Mike Stoops. I like him. We talk to him, every Tuesday. We would
Nice
talk
guy.
to him.
There's
He's
no
a
doubt.
cool
This guy knows what he's
We all
talking
like him. We all
about.
respect
Nice
him
guy.
and his family. He's
Right.
obviously beloved here. But you can only have a defense be that bad for so long. I mean, it's been, you could argue they wasted Baker Mayfield. They had 3 years of Baker Mayfield where they could never get over the hump because the defense was always so bad. I mean, they scored 48 on Georgia and lost the Rose Bowl. You shouldn't lose when you score 48 on that good of a team. So it's a tough deal. Yeah, you got a guy fired and stuff, but why was he not let go already? Like, they've been the defense has been horrible for so long, and it's like I don't know what I expect the fans, how patient I expect them to be. And like I said, you can only have that poor results for so long until you have to move on and do something else.
A lot of people said, donors got him fired a little bit because they were like, oh, well, we're going to, stop giving money, and that, kind of forces their hand a little bit. But, this might surprise you guys, but I don't have millions of dollars. But if I did, and I was pouring, $1 million into the football program, and they continue to lose, that would make me a little mad. I might not want to give my millions anymore. Now, you might say, okay, but that's not supportive. You should still, if you have the money, you should give money to the program,
Sure.
To help out the players and stuff. But, I mean, it's not going to make me want to give money if they keep losing when they could easily just replace a guy who might be the cause of the losing.
And also, just jumping real quick,
All right, real quick, guys, get this over.
I feel like his name almost might have worked against him with the fans, and that it's, me included, kind of felt like, is he only hanging around because of his name? Because
Nepotism, right? Yeah.
How bad can you be and keep being brought back and extended every year? The defense is consistently horrible.
I just find it hilarious we talk about patience, and those fans leave at halftime. I find it hilarious we talk about patience and waiting around, but at the same time, you forced the issue. You made the coaches and players do something they weren't comfortable with. I don't care about losses. I don't care about numbers. This was something they didn't want to do, and the fans made them do that.
But why
That's
didn't they want to do it? That's what I don't understand. Why don't you want to make a change to try and make your team better?
Because if you're a blue blood program, you don't fire your DC midseason and potentially impact your program moving forward.
Okay, so this is what I want to know. You talked about this divide between the fan base and the players, and from your perspective, you guys are at these press conferences. You interact with the players regularly. Tell me where you see this. Tell me visible lines that people who are casual fans are missing.
It's pretty easy. If you
Go for
don't
it.
need inside sources.
Hey.
Go on Twitter.
Yeah.
I mean, after the firing of Mike Stoops, Caleb Kelly, Kenneth Murray, so many players were tweeting out, it doesn't matter what fake ones say. It doesn't matter what all those people are talking about. That's my guy. You don't need to have a connection to the program to understand that these players are pretty PO'd right now.
Okay.
On the other hand, though, I mean, Kenneth Murray, you said he was tweeting about that, But also, someone asked him about, Ruffin after, the TCU win, and he just got this big smile on his face I'd never seen from him. And he was like, I love that guy. He said, I would run through a wall for him. And that's not to say he didn't love Mike Stoops as well. Of course, I'm sure he
You'll
did.
see that in a second, but yeah.
I'm sure they got along really well. But at the same time, a lot of the players, maybe not all of them, maybe a lot of them are upset that maybe he's the interim DC right now, but a lot of them love him. And I don't think they're too mad about that Mike Stoops was fired.
I mean, I know they loved Mike Stoops and stuff, but I just keep coming back to, like, how long do you have to go with that bad of a defense till you make a change? Like, you just got to stay with him forever because you like him? Like, you got to make a change at some point. It should have been done after last season, but I don't know. We'll see how much it is for the better going forward. So far, so good. One game, though.
I don't disagree with Josh. I just don't think it should have been made in the middle of this season. Okay. Now, it could result for the better, and even then, it would still be a problem to me, and it doesn't even matter what we think. It's a problem to the players.
I was very surprised middle of the season. I did not. I thought.
I was not at all. I could feel it coming.
I
really
completely agree.
Humble
Texas
brag.
is not a bad team. There might have been writing on the wall, but at the end of the day, a sticky scenario nonetheless. And as Madeline said, these players are still rallying behind Ruffin, and this is what they had to say in conjunction with today's game.
Nice word.
Conjunction.
Great effort, great fundamentals. Definitely think it was a pretty good tackling day overall. So I think we played well, and looking back on the mistakes that we do make, we got some stuff to build on. But I'm proud of the way we played with effort and proud of the way we played for each other. So I'm happy with the progress we made, and ready to take it to another level.
We made some of the changes that we thought we needed to make and could get made in 2 weeks, and everything else that we thought would be too much, we tossed. And I think that was a big part of the reason our guys were on the same page the entire game, and we played not only, played hard and all that, but we played well together, and I think that was a big part of it.
The best run game we've had all year. And I think, that's the most yards anybody's put up on TCU. We did a lot of good things on Saturday, so it was exciting to see.
We took some steps just defensively as a whole. I said this morning on the conference call, we played a lot of 11-man football, and we had some guys that played really, really well, but it was more to me as how well we played together as a group, and that's something we got to keep building on.
I thought our fundamentals improved as well. There's still some things we can do better in that area too. We did keep it simple, line up quick, even though we had a larger package than that during the game flow, but the kids handled in-game adjustments very well.
For him, it's keeping things simple. And so, after pretty much, Monday, Tuesday, he let us know what he was thinking, and just, showed us what he was thinking. And then after Wednesday, it was like, it's all in, and now let's go perfect and let's go fly around to the ball. And so at any point that if there was anything that, we were unsure about, that we didn't feel good about, then it was out of the game plan.
You want the kids to have confidence, and it was, if they didn't feel comfortable with the call, if it wasn't clear, and it's not a joke. I had David Magazine at the computer. He's going to erase them as soon as they raise their hands, went to each one.
Coach Ruff, man, that's he means so much to me, and he's a guy that I'll run through a wall for. And, you know, just, you know, seeing him happy after the game, you know, I've seen those dance moves a lot. You know, he got a lot more in the bag, you know, that y'all haven't seen. But, you know, he's definitely a fun coach to play for. You know, definitely going out there playing for him and trying to make him proud is something that, you know, I keep in the back of my mind.
Him being a player's coach, you know, it helps us play faster. Just keep it simple and let us go out there and do what we do what got us here.
Going to be another crucial game. You know, we've got to continue to climb, continue to grow as a team. We felt like we took a lot of big steps here in the last several weeks, but you know, that journey's far from over. You know, and I think the big challenge for us will be, you know, we've got to continue to have the preparation, the mentality that we really worked hard on throughout the bye week, throughout preparation for TCU. That's got to continue with this team, and that's going to be a big key. And so that'll be our focus point.
You know, they're a disciplined team. Coach Snyder runs a tight ship over there, and you know, I've seen it throughout the years. They come in, they're not going to make many mistakes. They're going to come up, they're going to execute their coach's game plan, and it's all about physicality. Who's going to punch who in the mouth.
Madeline spoiled it earlier, but Kenneth Murray said it best. They would run through a wall for Ruffin. There is respect despite the tension. So, conclude those thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell that Kenneth loves him. You can tell a lot of players do. If you'll remember, Brendan Radley-Heil said, or he tweeted out, he said something along the lines of like, "Oh, I'm glad I get to play for somebody I love now," or I actually like, you know, which Lincoln Riley said he deleted on his own about half an hour later. Lincoln said, "Delete it if you want," and he ended up doing it. But you can just tell that, you know, as much as these guys, probably most of them, did have a relationship with Mike, so they had a connection with him, they're happy to see him go just because they know that they needed a fresh start. And, I mean, yeah, we've only had one game since then, but you can see that it's working. Something else that stood out to me was that Lincoln Riley said, you know, we want to continue to grow. They did a lot of work over the bye week, obviously. There's work to be done. There's a new defensive coordinator, but they don't want that work to stop because they're still, I mean, they have a long way to go still. So I kind of like that mentality of like, okay, we're going to continue to grow. You know, we're going to act like, we're going to work like it's the bye week even though we have a game.
Yeah, I just think it's impressive to me how much Ruffin focuses on the comfortability and really the efficiency of his players. I mean, he talked about, especially right after the TCU game when it comes to mind, someone asked him, like, what calls are you making, what decisions are you making in the booth? And he said, it doesn't really matter. This is all about the players. The players are the call. The call isn't really what matters.
It's a really interesting approach.
And it is. I mean, you always talk about see ball, get ball, but coaches don't like that. I mean, they want that say, right? They want to command the game plan. You can tell that Ruffin doesn't really care. He knows that he has talent on the defensive side of the football, and he trusts those guys. That's what else I loved about him. He said trust is earned, and he right now is earning the trust of the players, and the players are earning his trust. But they already had it. So he knew going into that TCU game, he could just throw them out there and let them go be studs. And they were exactly that. So Ruffin McNeil has really impressed me. I've always thought he's a great coach and a great guy. Really excited to see what he does moving forward. Obviously, from what I've heard and what a lot of us have heard, he's not going to be the DC after this season. But for right now, you can tell this guy's the right man for the job.
Yeah, it goes to what, you know, a lot of people have talked about it throughout the week. You know, on Friday before the game, you know, he lets all the players look at all the call sheet, and he's like, anything on here you don't like, or you're not comfortable doing, or you don't think it's going to work, we'll just get rid of it right now. Like, no questions asked. And, like, that's really cool. You know, that's a cool thing. Like you said, the players are the call to him. You know, that's the thing he says a lot. You know, he does not worry about the plays. He knows, like you said, he knows he's got good players, and he's going to let them do his thing. My favorite quote of the week actually came from Bill Bedenbaugh about Kansas State. He said, you know, I look at the tape of them, and they look like the exact same team of 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Like, they look like they even have the exact same players. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know if that was like a diss or like, I don't know what that was. But it was funny to me because it's really true. K-State is the same team every year, and they have the same coach the last 90 billion years. So
approximately
around that time, maybe even longer. So
it's dinosaurs. Right?
You know, I find that interesting. This is it tells to me it sounds like this should be a matchup that they're all familiar with, and for the upperclassmen, they should be like, yeah, we know how to play them since they're the same. So curious to see how that works out. Should be interesting, I guess. We'll find out. K-State's always a weird one.
Last thing I will say before we go to break, the one thing I liked about the quotes about Ruffin this week were, I think this is the first time in any of the press packages that we have ran on this show that the players weren't just giving bulletin board material. I think there was some legitimate things instead of just like, yeah, next team, we just got to go out there, do our thing, execute, you know, the whole spiel. But That'll conclude it for us out here for right now. When we come back, the studio team led by Brooke Mursky will take things over, talking more college football. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the studio here on Game Day U. I'm Brooke Mursky, and they might be a little chilly out there, the remote team, but it's warm in here. I'm here with Spencer Royce, Lauren Linville, and Zach Brown. So the remote team kind of hit on OU a little bit, so we're going to go national, guys. Which team do you think is best equipped to beat Bama?
Ooh, tough one.
It is a tough one, but the trick to finding a team that can beat Bama is a team with an elite defense that also has the playmakers on offense to be able to outscore them maybe in a lower game. And with that, I'm going with Clemson, a team who has played them each of the last 3 years in high leverage games in the playoffs. Lost the first one, won the second one, lost the last one, all close games. That third game, not that close, I guess, 24-6. I mean, it's pretty. That's a pretty pathetic showing on offense.
I guess it's kind of close.
I guess.
But there's a pattern, so they have to win this year.
Yeah, they do. But, I mean, you look at it, Tua's like 12th in the country in passing yards. He completes 70% of his passes, and he has as many yards as anybody, and he throws like 100 less passes like, on the entire season. I don't know how you stop the guy. I really don't. But you know how employers always ask for 2 to 3 years of experience? Clemson's got that.
I mean, that's a good point.
They've got 3 years of experience, so if anyone's going to beat them, I'm going to go with Clemson. They have the blueprint to play them.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot. I think that there's a good chance, like he says. But I'm going to go with the team that I really was not on this hype train for a long time. I always think they're a little bit overrated. I'm going with LSU beating Bama. I know it's shocking, right? Not Auburn.
A little bit.
Not Auburn. But people, you know, LSU's offense isn't exactly, you know, spot on, but their defense is what's going to stop Bama. I mean, like he said, Tua is almost impossible to stop. But they haven't allowed more than 3 touchdowns in any game besides Florida this year, and so I think that they have a good chance of stopping them. And, you know, my thing is, even if they can't score them on Bama, as long as they can stop Bama. That's kind of the big thing here, because they are such a powerhouse on the offense. So I'm going LSU. Don't really know, but I really hope it happens next week, so we'll see.
You can dream.
Yeah.
I guess.
I know. I just have to go with the Tigers, even though that's hard for me to do, but I'm going with them.
Well, I've heard both of your sides, and I'm still sitting over here knowing in my heart, my mind, my body, my soul.
Okay.
Alabama is not going to lose this year, and the only team that could beat Alabama is themselves.
Oh.
They have to self-implode
That's the most
in
spiteful
order
thing
for
I've
this to
ever
happen. They have a full week of rest. No one's going to beat them this week because they're not even playing. Tua and the squad get to play number 4 LSU next week. That'll be the toughest team they play before the SEC title game.
And they're going to lose.
Yeah, you say that, but they're so much better. They have a top 3 offense, a top 3 defense. They haven't had this good of an offense since I've been really into college football, since all of us have been really into college football. They haven't had an offense like this, and their defense is arguably just as good as it has been in the previous years when they've won their titles. They're averaging 54 points a game. They're allowing 16. Joe Burrow's not putting up anywhere close to 50 points.
Well, the knock on Bama was always that they were great at everything except the quarterback position.
Tua hasn't thrown 1 interception yet or 1 pass in the 4th quarter, and he's going to probably win the Heisman.
Yeah, for sure.
Probably,
I agree.
yeah.
I think that he will.
So
they're going to just...
Can you honestly look at me and say, yeah, a team's going to beat them?
Citadel.
Yeah, it's already been said. I don't know why you're taking it back.
It can't happen.
All right, well, we'll see.
Clemson.
Okay. Well, stick around. We'll talk about the college football playoff next, but yeah. Welcome back to the studio. I'm Brooke Mursky, and I'm here back with our analysts. Let's get it started with, do you guys think Ohio State is done after the game last week?
Are they
Tough one.
done?
Are
I
they
think are they finished or are they done? I don't know. In the words of
Are those not the same
the
thing?
wise words of Birdman.
We're not cooking things.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So sorry.
Okay, so Ohio State looked absolutely pathetic against Purdue. From the get-go, they could not tackle at all. You saw Purdue rip off big play after big play. Look at this. Look at this. Oh my goodness. Me and Spencer would have made that tackle. Us one-on-one alone.
Really?
Ohio State looked horrible that entire game, but that's not the only time this year that they've looked horrible. They didn't look that good against TCU, who OU just absolutely mopped the floor with last week.
Yeah.
I mean, Ohio State, they had to have a great stretch of about 3 to 5 minutes in the game to pull out that win. And in this game, they just over and over and over again proved why they might not be one of the 4 best teams.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with you on this whole situation with Ohio State. And I think the biggest question here is if they beat Michigan. That's the say-all, end-all for them.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they're going to beat Michigan. I mean, their running game lately just hasn't been what it should be if they want to make it to the playoff. I mean, their best running back, J.K. Dobbins, only had 35 yards against Minnesota, only 24 against Purdue. I mean, when you lose by 29 to Purdue, an unranked team, there's a lot to come back from. And I mean, stating the obvious here, Nick Bosa, he's gone. I think that made a huge difference on their defense. They can't stop anyone at all. And so I think they're done. I don't think they're going to make it because I do think that Michigan's going to beat them, and then they're not going to win the Big Ten, excuse me. So.
What about just giving up 29 to Purdue?
Well,
they predid that.
They did.
Spencer, just no.
What about you, Spencer? What do you think?
My answer actually is no. They're not done. Thank you, Lauren.
Okay.
Someone's got to do it, right? They still get to play Michigan State, and you said they get to play Michigan. Plus, if they beat Michigan, they get to play in a title game,
right?
The Big Ten title game. And the College Football Committee definitely likes Ohio State. There's a lot of teams that they have bias to. They've been there. They've won the College Football Playoff already. One of the best runs of all time that I've seen in college football those last 3 games they played that year. So the College Football Committee knows that they can do it. They know that their program is built for success. Yes, the loss is egregious and it's terrible, right? But the Pac-12 is not getting in. The Pac-12 is cooked, right?
That's true.
The Big 12 champion could potentially have 2 losses maybe. We don't know yet. And at the end of the day, OU wins the Big 12, Ohio State wins the Big 10. Whose resume is better, OU beating Texas once, losing to them once, then playing just a slew of okay teams plus West Virginia, or Ohio State going on a run, beating Michigan State, then beating Michigan, who is ranked in the top 5 right now, and then going and beating probably a very good, I would say, an Iowa team in the Big Ten title game with one of the best defenses in the entire country. It just comes down to resumes of that day, and then you're going to look at it, is the loss too bad? So as of now, no, they're not done. They can still definitely run the table and make the playoff. If I had a gun to my head, would I think they would make it today? No, but they're not done. They can still get in.
I just feel like it's downhill from here for them.
Yeah, and what you said.
They just haven't looked like the typical Ohio State this year.
You can run a lot faster when you're going downhill.
All right, whatever.
I guess. I mean, it's harder to make tackles too, as you see, whatever. I guess teams are running downhill right now.
Okay, well, guys, what do you think one team would be that could be the college football playoff spoiler?
Okay, so this is so random, but I was on one of my social media accounts, and it said that oranges can reduce anxiety by 70%. But I got bad news for Notre Dame because the Syracuse Orange are going to increase that by 70% because they have potential to pull off a huge upset going to Notre Dame. They've done it. They did it against Clemson last year, but they almost beat Clemson this year.
Yeah,
and
they should have beat Clemson.
Should have beat Clemson. And their quarterback this year, I think there's a little bit of controversy right now. They think that maybe their backup might be a little bit better because their primary quarterback, he's more of a scrambler type. But he does have a good arm. He has shown throughout the year that he can complete tough passes. I mean, he's one of the top 15 remaining quarterbacks, I think, for the Golden Arm. They've got potential to get it done. They've got that blueprint. They've done it in the past. So Syracuse Orange is who I'm going with.
All right, I like it. I really do. Well, I'm going to go with Big 12 here. I'm going with Iowa State over Texas in a couple of weeks. Iowa State seems to be a little bit notorious for taking down the big teams when it matters most. I mean, they beat West Virginia, ridiculously bad. I mean, it was painful. And so I think that, if anybody is going to beat Texas, besides if it's Texas and Oklahoma in the Big 12, it's going to be Iowa State. And I think that it's going to happen. And so I just feel like if that happens, you can't even look at Texas at all for anything.
No.
At all. And I mean, I don't think that they should be looked at as much as they are right now, but they're going to. I think they'll lose to Iowa State. So that's mine. I'm going with Iowa State.
Wow.
Yeah, that loss would not help out OU at all. So
you're right about that. But what does that matter?
Both teams have to go undefeated throughout.
Yeah.
That's the only way OU gets in.
My spoiler is, I think, a team that could actually pull it off today.
Okay, let's hear it.
Yeah, are you going to say it?
We're ready.
They're a team that they started off terribly. I don't know if you heard of them, the Florida State Seminoles. They were very bad beginning of the year. But they've gotten much better. They lost to Miami by just a single point. They bounced back, probably played their best game of the year last week against Wake Forest. Francois, their quarterback, he's playing the best football that he's played. I've seen him play as a starter right now. He has 8 touchdowns and just 1 pick over his last 3 games. And Naquan Murray is a very good wide receiver, very talented. 35 catches, 487 yards on the season. I know that it's a long shot, but Clemson has a knack for dropping 1 game a year. That's a very bad loss. And I think that Florida State could be the team to pull it off. They have the personnel. They should have the talent. It just hasn't come together, and it's been a very odd, rough year for Florida State. And they're playing their best football right now, and they might be able to sneak it in a win against a very, very good Clemson team.
So do you think that if Florida State does beat Clemson, it will ruin Clemson's chance in the college football
because
playoff?
the ACC is pitiful.
Well, I agree with that.
Well, I hope you're wrong, because then we won't see any team beat Bama, because I'm the only one that's going to right over here, you know. So.
You're right. You're going to just ruin Zach's chances here.
Well, I like your guys' thoughts, but which top 25 team do you think has the most to prove over the last month of the season?
Ooh.
The team with the most to prove. How about this? How about the team that gave themselves a participation championship trophy last year? UCF, who Spencer for no reason loves. I am so sick of, for no reason. They don't really play anybody of like great substance like a lot of other teams do. You know, you keep talking about how their schedule's so difficult. Right now, like they had to have a great comeback against Memphis last week, and their AD right now is attacking everyone. Oh, you know, we 25 game win streak. Oh, this and that. This. Okay, well that's great. You wouldn't do that in the Big 12, the SEC. Maybe even the Pac-12, that you know, the conference you hate so much. I'm tired of hearing UCF. And if they lose once, they lose all respect and all credibility. So they have to win out to keep any respect that they do have.
How's that fair?
When you play lesser teams, you have to.
There's only like one conference this year with more than 3 good teams.
Look, I just feel like the caliber of team that they play, especially like having to come back against Memphis the way they did last week. I just really don't take them seriously. I feel like the only like great win that they do have is like the win against Auburn last year. Other than that, a lot of them are just very, very, very mediocre wins that any team can get.
They play who they're scheduled against.
They can schedule better teams in non-conference.
Well, they haven't been good until recently.
Well, I mean, it looks like they've got
All right,
some
Lauren, what do you think?
Okay, well, I'm going to go with the team that had so much preseason hype, and it's just painful now to watch them a little bit. I'm going with Washington has the most to prove coming in to this next week. I mean, Jake Browning has not looked as good as they thought he was going to be. I mean, he was on Heisman watch coming into the season. And now they sit 6-2 with very significant losses to Auburn and Oregon. So I mean, how can you even, they just look painful. I mean, they have a good secondary, one of the deepest in the country, but in the front, I mean, they don't put pressure on quarterbacks, and that's a big thing for if they want to have any chance of anything right now. But yeah, I think they have the most to prove. I don't think that there's no chance of them making the playoff, but if they want to at least say that they were decent this year and like lived up a little bit to the hype, then they need to do better.
Yeah, Washington has been painful.
Yes.
My team is a team that has struggled to get over the hump the last couple seasons. Can Harbaugh finally beat Ohio State? Can he get in his khakis and do it? They have not held Ohio State to under 30 points since 2012, and they still lost that game, by the way. Michigan has so much to prove because they need clutch quarterback play late in games and big games. They have not even been in the top 5 in the last 2 years. They're there now. They obviously haven't ever reached the playoff, and they have a great chance to do it. They always have great recruiting classes, so much hype. They have a coach who coached in the NFL, went to a Super Bowl. He was in a Super Bowl in the NFL, and he's been to Michigan, and Ohio State is just running them every year. So they're going to go into that matchup, and that is the biggest game of Harbaugh's coaching career at Michigan, the biggest game Michigan has had in a very long, very, very, very long time. So I think that the team with the most to prove is the Michigan Wolverines.
I agree with that. And if they do prove it and beat Ohio State, I mean,
it
really is done for them.
Their offense is better than it has been in recent years.
They can get in the playoff this year if they win out. They will get in the playoff if they win out.
For sure. In fact, we'll save that for later.
Well, that's it for us in the studio right now. Stick around. The remote team will talk a little bit about K-State.
What's up, Sooner fans? My name is Sam Anderson, the sports director here at Kansas State student-led radio station 91.9 KSDB. It's my job to fill you guys in on everything I know about this Wildcat team. So let's start it up front with the offensive line. Dalton Reisner and that group have been tremendous the past couple weeks, leading the way for our running back Alex Barnes, put up 250 yards and 4 touchdowns against Baylor, as well as 180-plus yards and 3 touchdowns against Oklahoma State. Really going to look to those guys to grind out a victory for us Wildcats, as our quarterback spot has been iffy all season. Skylar Thompson likely getting the start this weekend due to an Alex Delton injury. His throws have been inconsistent, and the receivers themselves have been inconsistent. Isaiah Zuber, arguably our only solid receiver, as Dalton Schoen, who's been a pretty decent deep threat, just hasn't been able to hang on to the ball these past couple weeks. So look for Alex Barnes to be the difference maker this weekend. On the defensive side of things, Reggie Walker and the defensive line have stepped up quite a bit these past couple weeks. Really looking for them to make an impact and potentially cause some trouble for Kyler Murray. But if not, Duke Shelley has been an absolute stud the past couple weeks in the defensive back spot. He's averaging, I think, just 2 yards per attempt. He's got a couple of interceptions as well in the past few games, so he's going to be a stud. But Oklahoma has so many receiver weapons that one guy's not going to be able to cover it, so we'll have to make a team effort with guys like A.J. Parker, Kevion McGee, and the linebacking core as well, keeping an eye on Kyler Murray. Sam Sizlove is questionable as far as I know, but Hughes has stepped in for a pretty good portion of the last few games. He's made an impact. Elijah Sullivan is a guy who can make an impact. So there's a lot of questions, I think, on defense, but if they play solid, I think we can control OU. But nobody else really has so far this season, so we'll leave that one to chance, I suppose. On the special teams side of things, it's been inconsistent as well. Blake Lynch, our kicker, is out as far as I know, so we'll have to see who fills in that spot. But the return game, which has been so dominant for K-State for so many years, we're looking for Isaiah Zuber, Duke Shelley, Dalvin Warmack, all those guys to make an impact, because I think we're going to need something to set this offense up with good field position so that we can just ground and pound with Alex Barnes to get a victory. Looking at probably needing 30-40 minutes plus time of possession for K-State to come out with a victory in Norman this weekend. Obviously, that's not what you guys want to hear, but that's what I'm going for. Thank you very much for having me. Get it back to the rest of your Sooner coverage.
I'm not so sure about the end result ending like that, but hey, you never know. Crazier things have happened. But guys, let's welcome on Sam Brown. Sam, Texas is back, Brown. He is on here for Madeline for this break.
Get him, Josh.
I'm going to go and say it's good that you said that whole Texas is back, because everyone, you're good.
You actually stole my take.
Madeline and y'all made me look like you guys thought I was crazy.
Hey, remember when Sam said Kansas State was going to be really good?
No.
Uh-oh. I think I got him.
Let's look at all 3 cameras. They're twisting my words.
I give you zero credit for the tech, because you stole my take. Because I said it on SportsPad first.
Get him.
And also, I was going to say it on GamedayU until you took my seat, and then took my. You were like, okay, I'll do
I'm not buying it.
I just want to say, let's not insult Sam anymore, because I think we're all going to look really dumb next week when he comes on and he was like, what did I say about K-State? 4 weeks ago, when they somehow pull out a win in that stadium. I don't want that to happen, but hey, who knows?
Maybe now that you've said it, it's been jinxed.
Hey, I don't know.
I see no way that happens.
That will be remarkable.
All right, okay, let's move on from that. I don't think that's going to happen, but that's why we're here. We're breaking this down. Sam, what do you think about this game? What are you looking at?
I'm looking at the quarterbacks. Specifically, obviously, you talk about Skylar Thompson, who kind of took over that starting job. He's really struggled in the passing game, like our fellow K-State student mentioned, with only 880 yards on the year, 5 touchdowns, 3 picks. That's not a stat line you want to have. He's looked good in about a couple games, but the competition really wasn't there. But the run packages that they run with him and Delton, you'll touch on Delton a little bit more later, are very interesting, because they do a lot of different things. I've seen them do simple draws to the right, RPOs, pulling a guard, leaving a tackle to block the backside, pulling both the guard and the tackle over. They do a lot of different things, and they get pretty good results. I think that in this environment, if they want to pull off an upset win here against OU, they're going to have to do some tricky stuff and really try and catch OU's defense off guard. So you could see a lot of quarterback run packages, especially if this game is close later in the game.
You were ready for it? Here it comes,
Not
everyone's
really.
favorite. Collins players to watch, ladies and gentlemen. They're coming in hot. I had like 5 last
favorite
time
is
we were
this?
on the show, but I cut it down, so here we go.
Eventually, he's going to talk about like half the team as the players to watch.
He already does.
I'm going to just for you, Sam, and then I'm going to mention that you thought Kansas State was going to be really good. Here we go. Number
Just let
1,
him go.
on the offensive side. This one's sort of iffy, but we have to break it down. Alex Delton, mentioned earlier, is questionable for this football game. Obviously, he's dealing with a little bit of an injury, but last season, this guy was really the main reason why Kansas State even had a shot against Oklahoma. Carried the ball 27 times. 27 times at the quarterback position and ran for 142 yards and 3 touchdowns. That's pretty good if I were to give you that keen analysis. Now, here's the question that we have to ask. If Delton plays and he's healthy, how do you combat that? Because it's been very evident not only the past season when Delton played, but this season that the quarterback run game specifically is something that OU struggles with. So if Delton is in there and playing at a high level, it spells trouble for OU's defense today. Now, could it be a little bit different with Ruffin at the helm as opposed to Mike? You saw when Michael Collins came in, Michael Collins had success early in running the football, but later on he was eventually held to a measly couple of yards, 36 if I remember correctly what Madeline Roberts said.
That is correct.
On the other end, going to the defensive side of the football, so I have 1 on offense, 1 on defense instead of like 5. Duke Shelley, mentioned by Sam Anderson. Thanks so much to Sam, by the way, for sending in that video for us and having us interact with him. He brought up a great point. You know, I stopped by their station, called in, and he said, you know, Duke Shelley, he's a guy that doesn't really get enough love as an NFL caliber cornerback, and I completely agree with him. This guy is an unbelievable talent, and he still has a lot of room to grow. I mean, he already has 3 interceptions. That ties a season high for him, and all 3 interceptions came in the past 2 games. Duke Shelley will be matched up with potentially either CeeDee Lamb or Marquise Brown. Now, given how stacked OU's receiving core is, it's hard to just say that if you shut down one, you shut down the offense, because that's not true at all. But if you can take away one of those options if you're Kansas State, that gives you a heck of a lot more of a fighting chance in this football game. Duke Shelley is a guy, I want to see how he can step up, make Kyler Murray make some bad decisions. If he can close quickly on the passing lanes, get in the way of some things, Duke Shelley might be one of the main reasons why this Kansas State defense, a maligned defense, has a chance.
I think he has a chance to make a big impact, but he's going to need a lot more help around him. You talk about players around him. Reggie Walker, their only real pass rush threat.
Yep.
He's got 5.5 sacks on the year, 2 forced fumbles. He's a good player.
He is.
He can rush the quarterback. Not much around those two, though. You got a lot of guys who get by, who do all right, but don't really stand out in any way.
Yep.
They're going to need a lot of help because this OU offense doesn't look like it's going to lose a beat at all in this game. They're going to keep throwing the ball. They're going to keep running it effectively. It's going to be an all-around effort for this Kansas State defense if they want to hang in this one.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. You ready for this analysis?
Yeah.
K-State is
Let me
bad.
write this down.
K-State is bad, and they're boring.
Are
and
you
they're
writing
bad.
that down?
K-State, write that down. Put it in
Is
pen and ink.
This is a hot take.
They're bad.
This is prime television, by
Their
the way.
defense, yeah, so good. Their defense is solid, it's got some good players, but there is no defense in college football that can stop Kyler Murray in this offense. So moving over to the other side of the ball, the offense, Alex Barnes is like your one good skill player, like literally. If they can limit him, which they've done a nice job this season, it's stopping the run. Even when the defense was at its worst, they've always kind of stopped the number 1 running backs. The one thing they've actually consistently done pretty well. If you limit him, they have very little receivers. They have very little other run game. They have their quarterbacks, who you talked about. They can run a little bit. Skylar Thompson got 300 yards himself.
Yeah.
After that, pretty much nobody else can run on the
Yeah.
team. The next highest rusher, who's not a quarterback, has 89 yards.
Yeah.
That's not good. That's low.
And on top of that, when you talk about Kansas State's offense, it's difficult because, personally, one of my favorite players from last year, Byron Pringle, mainly because of his name. Big fan of those chips, by the way.
Chips.
They come with a can. I can't get on board with the can. It's
No,
weird.
you got to change the can.
He had 2 catches, 70 yards against Oklahoma last season. He's gone, and now you mentioned earlier in the show, Josh, Isaiah Zuber is really their only outside threat, and Sam touched on that as well in the video. It's difficult because we talk about the run game so much, but it's their only outlet for success. Now, why they can still have success, and we've talked about Barnes, Thompson, Delton, all of these various players with the ability to run the ball, it all starts with Kansas State's offensive line. It's an unbelievable unit. I mean, Reisner and France on the outside, to me, you can make the argument that they're potentially as good of a tackle duo statistically as what Orlando Brown and Bobby Evans were last season. Those stats back it up. I mean, Dalton Reisler and Scott France were ranked in the top 10 as far as pass pro efficiency. Now, this season, I think France and Reisner are still having a great amount of success as far as in the run game and passing game. On top of that, I think Reisner is a potential first-round pick. So I want to see what those two do, especially against a new revamped defensive front for Oklahoma that's going to that four-man transition. I mean, Ronnie Perkins could potentially play against one of these two phenomenal tackles. Mm-hmm. How does he handle himself, and how do they handle themselves knowing that they potentially have the advantage on the outside?
Okay, so given these players and every aspect of the game that you guys are bringing, what player on OU do you think needs to make the biggest impact to more or less make these players obsolete?
Well, going down the stretch, I feel like a player that's really hasn't talked about a whole lot. He had a nice game last week, and I think he's going to be really key is Trey Brown for me, because Trey Brown, if he can be that number one guy in the secondary, that takes so much pressure off Norwood and Motley and then Buki and Khalil Houghton, and the whole secondary can play a lot better. Secondary had their best game maybe of the season last week.
Yeah.
Had one interception, could have very easily been three. The defense, TCU's core offense really wasn't working very well in the second half. As Malin said, 3 for 12 passing was Collins. Second half, if Trey Brown is legit number one DB, he can take on, Zuber today or the number one guys down the stretch, and he can lock them down even a little bit. That is huge. So I'm really looking at Trey Brown as being a guy who maybe could be the key to the whole defense being better. And obviously, if the defense is good, this team's going to be really good because the offense is exceptional, record-breaking. So Trey Brown, seriously, circle him. You're coming off a really nice showing and looking for more from him.
Is he the best defensive back on this team?
I think so.
Yeah.
I
think so. I think so. Before last week, maybe him or Norwood, I would have said, and he had a nice game last week, so I like Trey Brown a lot. He's a good tackler, too.
What do you got, Sam?
I'm going to stick on the defensive side. You talked about him earlier, Ronnie Perkins. Let me tell you something. When this guy is on the field, he lets you know right away. As a freshman, 3 sacks on the year in very limited time. Let's talk about that, because Ronnie Perkins, I think, deserves a lot more playing time than he's given. He infiltrates the rush. He rushes the passer. He can do everything. Third on the team in sacks, 4th on the team in tackles for loss, and again, like I said, in very limited time. He's going to see a lot more opportunities down the stretch with this 4-man rush that Ruffin McNeil is putting into place, and I think he has the capability, as time goes on, as he develops as a player, to potentially put out 10-sack seasons. Yeah. He's definitely capable of that. We've seen it already early. He's a guy that I think needs a little more playing time, and I think could have a big impact today.
That surprises me that he's 4th on the team in tackles for loss and 3rd in sacks.
When you think about it, think about how much he's on the field for maybe a couple drives a game.
Yeah.
If you really look at it, you see Kenneth Mann a lot, Neville Gallimore a lot, even Mark Jackson kind of in that pass rusher role. You don't see as much of Ronnie Perkins. You really should. This guy can play.
Well, it's all really about how they've used Mark Jackson for the first several games of the season. It was Jackson starting and then Perkins coming in a support role.
Yeah.
Now that role has flipped and it's Perkins as the guy and then Jackson in the supporting cast, I think you will see Perkins eventually become a guy that contributes in a whole lot of various aspects. And I think, to me, he will go down as a household name. He could be like a Tapper type of guy.
Yeah, it feels that way. You know, getting in as early as he is freshman year too. He's going to be a big impact. Him and Buki seem like they might be the cornerstones of this defense.
And you're seeing a lot of other young players get some time. Last week, and you saw Jalen Redmond on the field for the first time after he was supposed to be out for the season. You saw Delaren Turner-Yell coming back from injury. These guys are going to get a lot more opportunities, I feel like, going forward.
Deshaun White, a linebacker
to
watch moving forward.
And Kenneth Murray feels old, but he's only a sophomore.
He's a sophomore.
It's
unbelievable.
It feels like he's been here for a while, but he actually hasn't.
All right, here we go. This one's easy. I mean, right? This one's just a gimme answer. It's T.D. Lee, baby. Lee Morris is unbelievable, ladies and gentlemen.
He only catches touchdowns, and it's kind of silly.
12 catches? How many for touchdowns, ladies and gentlemen?
8
of them. 8 of them. That is an unbelievable success rate. I don't do math very well, so I'm not going to calculate those numbers.
Let me divide it.
That's 2/3. That's 67% right there.
There we go. First down test, and that's what matters.
6.6.
Yes, he passes my first down test.
66.7.
Okay.
You heard it for first.
But on top of that, what I think we don't talk about enough as far as T.D. Lee Morris, he has this unbelievable touchdown ratio. But these aren't just touchdowns at a 5-yard rate, right?
Yeah.
These aren't goal line fades. They're not stop routes in the end zone, even though he had a nice, pretty little one over there against TCU.
Yeah.
They're they're unbelievably long and difficult plays to get into the end zone.
The Florida Atlantic one, season
Yeah,
opener,
the
sticks
FAU.
out.
I mean, that's a big
one
play.
was awesome, and that was one of the moments where you thought, is this where this guy's back? Now, in the previous years, especially that year when he went off against Ohio State, you thought, could this guy be a key contributor? And then he faded away. You didn't really see him very much. Well, now he's starting to get some solid opportunities in the receiving corps, and he's capitalizing on the attention drawn by Marquise Brown and CeeDee Lamb. And to me, what I don't think we talk about enough, this guy, Lee Morris, if you really think about it, he's replacing the production of Mark Andrews and Dimitri Flowers. Those two were unbelievable red zone threats.
I was going to say he's
specifically.
He's kind of making up for Grant Calcaterra's lack of success.
Yeah, your boy Grant Calcaterra that you love so much.
Do something.
You saw him pick it up. You saw him pick it up a little bit.
No,
last
he had 3 catches for 20 yards.
Yeah, don't give him that.
I'm not going to hold his hand. That's not acceptable.
But if you really think about it, I think Lee Morris has started to accept his role because they don't have a go-to tight end option. They're still trying to figure out the H-back spot. Though I will say Carson Meyer, when he's given
catching
the football,
passes now.
He's
What's up
doing
with that?
a nice job. And I almost picked Carson Meyer, but Lee Morris is just the easy pick because he stepped into his role, and when given the opportunity, he's capitalizing on it. And I want to see him continue to do that as the season progresses.
Okay. With that being said, before we move on, this is one thing that just kind of like hit me as we were talking. We never ask you for your score predictions or call-outs or anything. Do you have a little impromptu thing just to talk
this
about?
Is nice.
We do care.
I actually want to know.
Yeah.
Okay, give me something, Sam.
Don't take one of our call-outs. That'll make me mad.
My score prediction, I'm sorry if I took it from the other day. My score prediction is 49-20 OU.
Oh, he's 1 point off of mine. That's
really?
good stuff.
There you go.
7 touchdowns exactly?
Yeah, I just think Kansas State doesn't really have the talent to keep up with OU this game. You might see it kind of close for a little bit, maybe quarter and a half. But really, I mean, you're going to see Kyler Murray put up some big numbers.
Yep.
Bama's got that bye week this week. He's going to try and close that gap between himself and Tua. Big time.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Okay.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
Any other final thoughts about this game before we wrap things up?
Will Bill Snyder retire at halftime? Over, under.
What kind of ridiculous question
Over,
is
under,
that?
half a
Over
retirement.
under half a retirement?
Under.
if I'm a gambling man, that's
Should
a
he
bet I
retire
like.
at halftime? Yes.
All right.
Mike Stoops, next
Depending
head
on the
football
score.
coach at Kansas
Depending
State.
on the score.
Don't start that rumor, please.
I'm going to start it, and it has no validity to it, but it's going to happen. I will make that happen at the end of the day.
All right. Do not follow Colin's Twitter because it is all fake news. But, hey, he's got some good points. Sam, thank you for coming on. We really appreciate it. Guys.
Anytime.
We'll see what happens today. We'll come back next week. But thank you guys for watching. When we come back, it will be the studio team again talking about the CFB playoff. Don't go away. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the studio here on Game Day U. I'm Brooke Mursky, and it's time to recognize this week's NFL Sooner standout. This week, the honor goes to former OU wide receiver Sterling Shepard. After a prolific career at the University of Oklahoma, Shepard was selected by the New York Giants in the second round of the 2016 NFL Draft. In last Monday night's contest against the Atlanta Falcons, New York ended up on the wrong end of a 23-20 final score. However, Shepard recorded a career day. He reeled in 5 passes for 167 yards, including 2 receptions that went over 50 yards apiece. And the 2018 season is still young, but so far, the 24-year-old wideout has exceeded expectations, emerging as a viable threat in the passing game alongside Odell Beckham. On the heels of his brilliant performance in prime time, Shepard is an easy choice as this week's NFL Sooner standout. Guys, what do you think about that?
Good stuff. I know the Browns might try and trade for him, get Baker some more weapons, so that'd be pretty neat.
Yeah, that'd be so fun to see them together.
Well, I mean, Eli's not putting them, to use that often. They're awful. So.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and talk about the college football playoff predictions that you guys have. What about you, Zach?
So, I mean, there are a couple of easy choices. I think Bama's probably going to make it. Probably,
You think?
Maybe. We've pretty much established that they're not going to lose at all. And then after that, I've got Clemson, the team that's going to take them down. In the college football playoff. In the playoff, yeah, in the playoff. Right. Anyways, so yeah, I'm not going to touch too much on Bama, but Clemson actually is my second team. But the team that's going to shock me the most here is Michigan, and I think they're probably the hardest team to gauge because so often we talk about how they might not have the offense to, make it to the playoff. but this year they have turned it around. And lastly, I'm going with OU as my 4th pick. But that number 4 spot is wide open. And just something I thought that was pretty interesting. Austin Seibert was actually in my restaurant watching the Ohio State-Purdue game, going crazy during it. And I think it's pretty safe to say that the team has a lot of newfound life. So I think that's a pretty interesting little tidbit there.
Okay. Well, I like that somewhat.
Somewhat?
Somewhat. I mean, I agree with you on 3 of the 4.
Okay.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
That's
close.
a passing score.
So what's your other team?
Okay, so instead of Michigan, I'm going with Notre Dame, the team that beat Michigan in the first game of the season. So, I mean, obviously, as you said, we can't even begin to say that Bama isn't going to make it. Even if LSU beats them, whatever, they will make it. Tua is going to win the Heisman, no doubt. Yeah, Tua Heisman, no doubt. And then my second team is Clemson, because they are 7-0 right now, and there's no way that they don't dominate the rest of their schedule and have a ridiculous resume. I mean, they're number 4 defense in the country, and I think it's their O-line that a lot of people don't recognize. But third, I'm going with Notre Dame because, I mean, Pac-12 is not going to make it in. They have no good teams. And then fourth, I'm going with Oklahoma. Oklahoma, it's hard because I was really between Michigan and Oklahoma here.
But you go here.
Yeah.
No, that's not even why. I just think like Michigan's loss to Notre Dame is more significant than people realize. And and even if Michigan beats Ohio State, which I think they will, I just don't think that they go in over Oklahoma. I think that the Big 12 winner should go in.
You're either with us or against us.
But that's not just because I go here. And so I think, I don't know, those are my 4, and so there you have it. I know
deal
that
with
you're,
it, Spencer.
Yeah, but I really did have a tough time deciding between Oklahoma and Michigan there. So.
Well, last week I said I'll have 4 teams that are going to be undefeated in the playoffs. First time that's ever happened. Maybe only time it'll ever happen if it does. But I'm still sticking with it, even though the 4th team I had last week suffered a loss somehow. But as I know for a fact, Alabama will not lose a game this entire season. Tua will win the Heisman. I said that week 1, sticking with it. Jerry Jeudy has 10 touchdowns already, nearly 800 receiving yards, and their smallest margin of victory was 22 points. They're the 1 seed, no question about it. No way anybody beats them at all. I don't even know why we had the discussion. Clemson's going to get the 2 seed because they have that clout. They're going to get over Notre Dame. They've been in it the past however many seasons, right? They're great. They've beaten Alabama before. They're usually in the playoff. Trevor Lawrence is playing very well. He's getting better every single week. He has Kelly Bryant's monkey off his back. He's gone now. Etienne, he is the man. 800 yards, 14 scores, scored 3+ touchdowns in multiple games, and they don't play another ranked team. Then they're going to move to Notre Dame. They have no hard teams left on their schedule. Ian Book is great. He's a smart quarterback. They're allowing 18.6 points per game, and their hardest games before the playoff are already behind them: Michigan, Stanford, and Virginia Tech. Now, my 4th team might be a shocker to you, and it is UCF, the University of Central Florida. They're undefeated, back-to-back seasons. They're going to get the last spot. They dominated Auburn, who was very good last year. They beat Alabama. I don't know if you remember that. They dominated them, and they capped off an unreal season. The American Conference is just as good as the Pac-12 or the ACC this year. They have just as many good teams in it. And who would not like to see the actual 2017 champ as the 1 seed playing against the proclaimed 2017 champ as the 4 seed? That'd be pretty legit.
I mean,
they have a banner. They both got banners for last season. Let them play this year.
I mean, even though I don't agree with that, I do think that it'd be very interesting to see.
I don't know how else they're supposed to gain any respect. They win every single game, most games by quite a bit. Mackenzie Milton is a great quarterback. They played some decent teams. They're going to play South Florida. They're going to probably end up playing Houston, I think, in the American Championship.
Probably.
Those aren't easy teams. Those are decent football programs. You saw the shootout they had with South Florida last year, one of the best games of the season. And then they go and they beat Auburn, and they come back. They lost their head coach, who was phenomenal, goes to Nebraska. They get a new one. Heupel takes over, right? No, not much layover at all. They're still amazing, and they just keep winning and winning and winning, and they have to get some respect somewhere.
It'd be quite interesting to see how those fans go crazy if they actually did make it to the playoff, as they say they won.
They won't, though.
All right, let's hear it.
I mean, the fact that they didn't even move up last week. I mean, everybody else around them moved up, but they just stayed put because they're not going to get any respect. I don't respect them. I mean, I don't sit here and look at their
Yeah,
schedule.
they really care what Zach Brown thinks.
They do. That's why they didn't move up.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, like the fact that they did move up, it's not a shocker to me though. I'm not impressed by like 90% of their wins. Like the Memphis game last week, I'm just going to keep harping on that until they prove me wrong.
Teams have close games. Clemson, the team that you think might be Alabama, should have lost to Syracuse. They beat them by like how many points? 2? 1?
Right, but I mean, Clemson has just proved it in like the years past. UCF, I mean, they haven't had a chance.
UCF doesn't do that. They don't lose.
I mean, they haven't really had a chance to prove it, but I don't feel impressed by anything that they do. Like they have one like great win. The Auburn win was great, but outside of that, I just feel like their confidence.
That's
really
the only
weak.
opportunity they've been given.
And
they killed them.
They need to schedule better opponents. In the non-conference, they need to.
Okay, well, I guess we'll just have to see.
We will.
Exactly.
That's actually a good point, Lauren.
Well, on that note, I'm going to toss it over to the remote team, but stick around. We'll close the show right here in the studio, and stay with us.
Back to Game Day U, guys. You know it. We all love it. Well, at least I do. Call-outs, final
I love it
word,
too, Joe.
At least I do.
Score
I love it.
prediction.
It's your time to shine,
so
buddy.
Happy about this segment. So let's go ahead and move on to this. Josh Calloway, your final word.
All right, so my word is boring because this game is boring. K-State is boring. Kansas is boring. Their uniforms are boring. Bill Snyder's boring.
They're going to win now.
Their offense is boring. Everything. This game should be boring because OU should win it by a lot. Let's go ahead and make this game boring. Make it what it is, which is boring.
Disclaimer, Josh is not allowed to use a select few words, which you can find on one of our Twitters later on. So he is using it boring.
Everything you say that was boring is not nearly as boring as your word choices every week, and this is an example. Boring is the most boring word you could think of.
Okay.
Your words are
okay.
stupid,
My words
This
are
is what-
amazing.
Nobody likes your words.
Here's what no one knows is during
Everyone
the commercial break,
does.
Madeline said she was going to call out Josh, and I thought it was about something football related.
No.
Give yourself a break. Not everyone here gets a thesaurus and skims through.
Nothing.
Our producer Parker.
We don't need dictionaries.
Our producer Parker Thune said my words are his favorite Game Day U meme.
That means nothing.
Nothing.
That means everything to me.
No,
Joe.
no word sums up K-State football better than boring. Even when they're good, they're still boring.
That sums up your word choices better than anything in the world.
All right,
Just
let's
saying.
keep
It
going.
had a double meaning because
right.
like the game should work because you
Madeline's
should win it.
interesting word, which
Not getting
is
the
not boring.
I got the point. It's just lame.
Look, okay, say your word, and we'll see which word's better. Say it.
My word is I don't think I've ever used this word in any context.
And
any
yet,
way.
yet it's a good word. Okay.
It is. It's hullabaloo.
Boo.
That's
They're
terrible.
mad because they're just.
Is that even a real word?
Why would I be jealous of this word?
Hullabaloo.
Use it in a sentence.
How are you going to make fun of boring and come at me with hullabaloo?
Yeah, use
So
it in a sentence.
far,
That's a good.
this college football season has been full of a lot of hullabaloo.
Oh my God.
Hullabaloo basically is just wild things happening, commotion. A lot of teams have lost that we didn't expect to lose, but then a lot of teams have been undefeated and have been really good that we didn't maybe expect. Maybe, like a Notre Dame.
Alabama, who saw that?
Honestly, like Clemson, Alabama.
Clemson and Alabama are exceptions to the rule. But also what I'm saying is that if OU wants to make it into the playoff, they no longer control their own destiny. There's a lot of hullabaloo going around. They need, Clemson to lose, Notre Dame to lose, maybe Ohio State to lose again to Michigan. They need things to happen. They need some hullabaloo. But also...
You've said the word too many times.
It's a great word.
It's lost its meaning.
Hullabaloo.
Tongue twister.
But also, the Sooners, like I said, they have that loss, so they can't pay attention to all the hullabaloo around them.
Oh my God.
Instead of looking at the hullabaloo, they need to look at just their games, taking it week by week, focusing on fundamentals, as Lincoln Riley preaches all the time. Don't look at the hullabaloo, Lincoln. Look at the fundamentals.
All right, Colin.
Hullabaloo,
Do you have a word that isn't
hullabaloo.
hullabaloo?
My word was like boring, and your word was like crazy insanity. So yours needs to be like in the middle.
I'm going to split the difference, I think.
I hope so.
Yours word's like normal.
Here's what I kind of like. Last time around, I used a word that's a verb. I
Shrug,
used shrug.
and you shrugged 50,000 times.
Shrug.
You said
And
hullabaloo
like
like
a-
100 times.
I was
Shrug.
trying to one-up Colin from last week.
You can't one-up me.
I
Your
said
words
boring
are
a lot, too.
ridiculous, and you need a dictionary every single time you go get one. Okay. I'm going to go with another verb. I'm going to go with slip. Now, if I slip right now, that won't go well at all. But here's what I'm going to take this little approach with. I said you need to shrug off the loss. Well, now you can't slip and take an L, which is in the word, actually. Fun fact.
An L is in the word?
You can't slip up. Look, I think the emotions are high right now. There's some positive momentum building for Oklahoma, and now that they're finally back at home in this homecoming atmosphere, who's going to win homecoming king? So excited to play in front of people. There's going to be dresses everywhere. Are we going to the dance, by the way, Joe?
There is
You
no
never
dance.
responded to me. I asked him
There
to
is no
Hoko,
dance.
and he didn't give me a
We
definitive
are not
answer.
in Greek life.
You know, it's funny you mentioned homecoming.
Get back to me on that.
Because Curtis Bolton, I asked him about homecoming.
Yeah.
I said, so it's homecoming, are you excited? He was like, no, I just want to play football.
I think homecoming is a ridiculous concept. It's just another football game. But here's the thing. You can't slip up when the heightened emotions are around you and take an L. Look, we talk a lot about how this game will be boring and how Kansas State isn't necessarily good. All of this keen analysis brought to you by my man Josh Calloway.
That's true. They are boring and bad.
Yes.
I stand by both those takes.
2 B words, too. I mean, you're kind of sticking with
Whoa.
You're consistent. I like it. My supporting analysis to that would be if they're bad and they're boring, it looks really, really bad if you slip up and take an L to them. So make sure you go in focused. Don't slip up and take a fat L here at home in this homecoming atmosphere that everyone's blowing out of proportion. And then when fans leave at halftime, it's going to be nothing. But
86,000 people are always here.
yeah,
regardless.
and then there's like 40
yeah.
at half.
Sorry, I'm not going to the dance with you.
The fans
anyway,
are fine. It's
So you said no? I might get off the set. I'm a little upset right now.
All right,
We're almost done, don't worry.
all right. So my final word is pretty similar. It's chore, like when you were a kid growing up, doing dishes, taking out the trash, because Kansas State is boring. This is a team.
I like this word. I'm down with it.
It is.
I will
This
say
game is a
It's
chore.
better than yours.
I don't
by
hear
far,
a lot of
so.
people saying hullabaloo, but we're using boring a lot. I don't
All
know.
right. That's a good point. It's easier to use. It rolls off the tongue. You don't think, am I saying this right every time you say it? But yeah, just going back to that, this game is a chore before we start the whole championship November narrative in 4 or 5 days, before we start talking about all of these good teams OU's going to have to play for that shot at the college football playoff. You got to go through some teams who you should beat. And
So-
this is one of those teams.
So basically, Kansas State, the game itself is a boring chore, but they can't slip up because that would be what? Starts with an H, ends with an hullabaloo.
Let's say chaos instead of that.
Hullabaloo.
Why is the game a chore?
Because they're
it's
boring. Thank you.
That's my
Hey,
case.
sometimes you slip when you're mopping and doing your chores.
All right, this is going off the deep end.
All right, let's keep going. Josh, what is your call out?
I'm going to call out Marcellus Sutton because Trey Sermon might
Who?
not play. Marcellus Sutton. It's like the most fun name
It's a
to say on the
hullabaloo of a
team.
name.
I don't think
There
that
I
was
we go.
tried.
There we go.
I tried.
Colin.
that was not used correctly. If Sermon doesn't play, you got Kenny Brooks, who's going to be the guy. He might be the guy even if Sermon does play, but definitely Kenny Brooks is going to get a lot of carries today. They need Sutton to do something if Sermon does not play, especially. But even if he does, it would be nice to have a third option. You know, Marcellus Sutton's a guy who I've always liked. He always seems like he's pretty dynamic, pretty explosive, but he's never really consistently done anything. So, you know, I'm looking for Marcellus Sutton. Can he emerge, especially if Sermon does not play, which I have no idea if he's going to play at all or not. But if he doesn't, especially, Marcellus Sutton needs to do something, and I think he will. I'm confident. I've always liked him. I've always expected him to be good, and he never really produces. So I'm looking for Marcellus Sutton to do something.
All right, Madeline.
All right, I'm going to call out someone that Sam Brown brought up out here with you guys. You talked about a little bit. Ronnie Perkins. Last week on the show, I said, you know, he had a really good first couple games, and I was really impressed with how good this young guy was playing. And then they didn't really use him much. Mike Stoops kind of, for whatever reason, you know, in the schemes that he was going through, he didn't really want to use him too much. But then, you know, Ruffin McNeil comes in, he goes, we're starting this guy. And I think, I mean, I said it last week, I think that's the right decision, and it definitely was. This guy is so good. As you guys brought up, I mean, he's going to be a household name, I think, especially even as early as the end of this season or early next year. I mean, he is so good. He's not even really that big of a guy, but he tackles and gets to the ball like he's a big, really fast guy, and that's what I like about him. So look for Ronnie Perkins to continue to play really, really well for this
You don't think
defense.
he's big?
He's big, but he's not Kenneth Murray big, is what I'm saying.
He's pretty big.
Interesting. Every time I see that guy, I need to check his birth certificate because there's no way he's
Yeah,
like
he's like
19.
He's big for a 19-year-old, definitely.
I mean, I think he's huge, but
He's
different
big for
opinion.
a
Of course
grown
you
man.
do.
Yeah, I mean,
Of
look
course
at
you
you there, Chief.
Whatever.
Anyways,
Take it away.
my call out, I'm going to stay on the defensive line. Amani Bledsoe. This guy made a lot of plays, especially in that Florida-Atlanta game. It seemed like he was all over the football field, and then since then, it's been very quiet. Now, He is very, very crucial in the fact that in this game specifically and moving forward, dominating the line of scrimmage in a four-man front is imperative. Imani Bledsoe, he's a guy with all the talent that you want. I mean, he's a big kid. He's got phenomenal hands. We don't talk about how well he uses his hand placement and he's able to get around protectors, but at the end of it all, he just hasn't put the success on the stat sheet. I feel like, especially in this football game with Barnes, Thompson, and potentially Delton if he's healthy, as I touched on, all going downhill towards that line of scrimmage. Now that Bledsoe is in a new position, interior defensive line, can he make an impact? Because if he can, you partner him with Ronnie Perkins, Kenneth Mann, Neville Gallimore. That is a front to be reckoned with. I think it all stands on the shoulders of Imani Bledsoe, and this football game specifically, to me, is a game that he could stand out in.
Okay.
Bonus call out real quick. Ben Powers from Kansas. They asked him earlier this week, did you like K-State growing up? And he said, no. They're like, did they recruit you? No. Why didn't they recruit you? I don't know. So look for Ben Powers to overpower. He's really got away with words.
Yeah.
You might need to talk to him. You could up his game a little. Give him a thesaurus for something, you know.
I might.
All right. My call is going to be pretty simple. It is the defensive substitutes. We got this topic of conversation in the show today about time of possession. Multiple games we've seen OU field a large variety of players. We talked about it earlier. Players like Mark Jackson coming on as more so like relief here. And I think if this is going to be a factor in the game, if Kansas State is going to step up, I think that they just need to be fresh as a whole unit. All right, Callaway, score prediction. What is it?
Yeah, I got Oklahoma pretty big, obviously. 55-20. I think they kind of similar to the UCLA game earlier this year. They'll score a lot. K-State probably gets some garbage time points. Kyler probably won't play much in the fourth quarter, I don't think.
Sounds pretty boring.
Yeah, you're telling me.
Yeah.
That should have been somebody's word. Oh, wait. It was. Go ahead.
Madeline?
Well, since you're going off your word, I'm going to go off mine.
By the way, your score prediction's really bad.
I think this game is going to be hullabaloo. I'm going to go
Stop.
200-0 Oklahoma. No, that's not my score prediction. A little less crazy. I'm going to say 62-24 Oklahoma. As we've been saying, this K-State offense, they can
62?
run the ball. They can run the ball, but they're not very good. Yeah, their defense is not great. They've looked decent in Big 12 play. I'll give them that. But they haven't played Kyler Murray and the weapons that he has on this Oklahoma offense.
I'm sorry, did you say they look decent in Big 12 play?
On the defensive side, yeah.
Okay, that's what I was about to say. I was like,
Yeah.
wait a second.
Yeah,
They're okay offensively. They're just averaging like 49 points per game.
Their run game is good, too.
Offense could do better.
But, yeah, OU wins big in this one.
All righty.
62.
Go for it.
62 is a lot. I'm going to take – I feel like it's the under
Confident.
here. 49-21. To me, I'm going to take this a little bit more of a tactical perspective. Kansas State will try and control time of possession. Sam touched on it when he sent his video in to us. The key to Kansas State –
Not Sam Brown.
No, not Sam Brown. Sam Anderson.
I was like, what's Sam video?
The key to Kansas State staying in this football game is holding on to the ball. And Bill Snyder said it this week. He said he wants to play almost the exact same style of football as Army. And he's looked at a lot of that film, and he's tried to adapt similar perspectives to his offense. Knowing that, I'm going to put 49 points on the board because that not only is the average, but to me, Kansas State will try and hold on to the football as long as possible. 21 points because I don't think, especially if Delton is not healthy, they don't have that supporting guy to Thompson that he can get it done by himself. And Barnes is really the only person to key in on with no Byron Pringle and Isaiah Zuber not being the best of receivers. So I'm going to go 49-21 Sooners.
Okay. Well, do you guys have this feeling, because this is something that I always think of whenever I have like a score prediction. I feel like I'm just throwing darts at a board and hoping that the score that it lands on is good. Because
yeah, that's kind of the point.
It's pretty variable. I mean,
Yeah.
because I feel like you could run OU's games every season through some big statistical algorithm, and you'd always get the same thing of probably the wrong score. It's always different. It's always variable. So with that being said, I'm going to go with 45-24 just because I have guessed this score 8 times and not been right once. So I really don't have a good reason. We know OU has a good offense. We know that K-State might try to run the clock. We know a lot of things, but at the end of the day, we don't. So maybe, just maybe, this week out of all weeks, I will have my score prediction.
Did you really go back and count how many times you guessed that?
Absolutely. I've been here for 3 years, and I just have looked at my notes and I was like, why do I keep
really hope you
thinking
get
this?
it, man.
One last
I'm
thing.
going to be cheering for you.
We went through the whole show. You know, we apologize whenever we were wrong about Zeb Noland. Let's pat ourselves on the back. Sean Robinson got benched. We were on that.
That's true.
All right, that's all I had.
I will say our score predictions and even our hot takes have gotten better as the season has gone on.
They have.
My score prediction last week was close.
They've aged well.
Yeah,
except for your
Part of that
Wilkes
is,
hit.
we
But-
got to know the OU team better.
Yeah.
We, how many points they're going to give up and score. But yeah, I think overall our predictions have gone a lot better.
Remember
so
we thought
shout out
Florida
to
Atlantic
us.
would be close?
Yeah,
I said the fast start and everything. Bill Snyder will retire in this football game.
Why is that a thing? That doesn't even make
And Mike
sense.
Stoops is getting hired in the fourth quarter.
If he turned 95 and didn't retire, why do you
Flaming
retire
hot
this game?
takes. Get them while they're hot.
Wow.
Can we just take a moment of silence for whatever that
I'm all
was?
about factual inaccuracies. I love it. Hey, we could easily step in on an ESPN site right now.
That's
I mean,
true.
honestly, that isn't the
Hire
craziest
us.
thing.
Is this the biggest age gap of a coach head-to-head ever?
Oh, that's a good question.
Why didn't I research that?
It's probably in the running. It's
There's
gotta
no way
be.
it is.
Let's assume it is, just for fun.
Yep.
You heard that here first. We're reporting that first. And this is the largest age gap between a Division I game and their head coaches. Okay. Do you guys have any final thoughts before we send it back to the studio?
Oh, man.
Hullabaloo.
Okay.
I made my thoughts clear. This game's going to be
That's my
boring.
thought.
K-State's boring.
I would just say
This week's been boring.
this will be – what are you doing over there?
I just saved your life. There was a spider on you. I saved your
Oh,
life.
thank the Lord, actually. That's my
He's
final
terrified
thought.
of spiders.
You have
leave it
no
there.
idea how terrified I am of spiders.
If there's spiders out here, let's just get
Saved
out of
your
here.
life.
Come on, wrap it.
I mean, final thought, man, just take care of business. I mean, and also, like I said, fans need to start freaking getting pumped up. I want to hear a loud atmosphere, even though it's a boring game. How many students are in the student section today, and will they leave
I
before
think
the
they'll
third
be
quarter?
excited. I think coming off the TCU win, they're excited, and they're excited about Ruff and McNeil. I think we'll get a good crowd today.
Hey, and for
I don't
what it's
know.
worth, you were
I
talking.
think we will.
Wait, what was your hesitation?
I don't know.
I mean, yeah.
There's
I don't
no
know.
way that they stay past the third quarter if
I
this
don't know.
game goes the way the Josh
I
thinks it
feel
That
like
is
it's-
true.
Well, yeah.
But you got to think. You
That's
were
to be
talking about like
expected.
homecoming is just. It's a lot. Like, and you're not like the biggest person to buy into it. But at the end of the day,
There's Haley. She's up for princess.
Is that a real person?
no.
I don't know. I'm
No, anyway, but
It's like a subtweet.
you're going to get a lot of fans, especially in the student section, who are going to remain there throughout halftime at least, which sounds pathetic that I'm saying that this is a good consolation.
They
but
got
this is a
through
good
halftime.
consolation. Hey, the
Hey,
got through
halftime is,
award.
if you can survive halftime, you're sitting pretty. That's when most people leave.
Yeah, honestly. So, I mean, let's count our lucky stars that we will have fans at least through the
They'll
start
be loud
of the
for
half.
Bedlam.
So yes or no on the dance?
I will go to the dance with Colin that doesn't exist.
Yes!
There isn't.
That hurt.
I could. Okay.
All right.
All right.
Pick out your dress.
We're
Okay,
off the rails. Get out of here.
Clearly the guy. But
Corsage.
thank you guys for watching us. We are done out here. Brooke Mirsky and the team will take it away to conclude the show. We hope to see you next week. Don't go away just yet.
See you in Lubbock.
That spider was active.
Welcome back to Game Day U. It's a great day for a game day here in Norman, Oklahoma. But guys, let's talk about the top 3 national games. So let's move into Florida and Georgia. What are you guys thinking about that game?
Yeah, so a matchup between two highly ranked teams, and this game right here could have huge implications on the college football playoff. I think especially for Georgia. So Georgia has had some games this year where they score really low, and they've had some games where they score really high. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of in between for them. And so I just really had trouble picking this game because there is so much fluctuation with their offense. But here's the thing, Georgia's only been tested once, and they lost to LSU 36-16.
Yeah.
And that's not really a good look. So I'm going to have to go with Florida in this one.
Oh, cool. That's dope.
Okay. That is. Well, I'm going to have to go with that other team. I'm going with Georgia on this one. Obviously, both, Georgia and Florida both have very good defenses and not great quarterbacks. So you have to look at it in that aspect, as it's like a defensive battle here. But I still don't think you can count Georgia out because of their offense. I mean, they've scored no less than 38 points except for against LSU. So they haven't looked terrible on the offensive side of the ball. So I think I'm going to one up them there, and I'm going to give it to Georgia today.
Okay. What about you, Spencer?
I would love to see Florida win. I think that college football is better whenever the Gators are great. But I can't bring myself to do it. I think Georgia's going to come out on top of this one, which is the biggest game of the week. Both teams like to run. They've struggled a lot through the air, and their stats are eerily similar. Like all the way down the board, they're very, very close. The closest thing is their points per game that they allow is 16.6 to 16.3, so 16 points a game. They both allow. And I think this year Felipe Franks has outplayed Jake Fromm. Jake Fromm has not been very good this year at all. And as a person who outdueled Baker Mayfield last year in the college football playoff as Georgia won one of the best games maybe of all time, right? They have a guy on their bench now that people are asking, hey, is he going to get a shot? Justin Fields, the top-rated quarterback of his class. And they're like, this is a guy that was in the college football playoff last year, Jake Fromm, who played very well, who had a lot of pieces done on him at ESPN, was in the national title game and played very good in that game too. And they're already calling for someone to maybe replace him because Georgia has this slew of talent, and they're not really, like you said, haven't found like a niche yet. Like they're up, they're down, they're never in between. They're just kind of like you don't know what they are yet. And that's not good for a team with that much talent. But I think that they get it done this week against Florida, who maybe has less of an identity than they do at this point.
Bama went with their backup quarterback. See how that went.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to see Georgia struggle like this because you do want to see them do well also, you know?
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
I don't want to see Georgia do well. They broke our hearts last year.
I do. I want to see them do well. That's exactly why you should want them to do well.
Georgia.
I think I'd have to go with Georgia as well. But along with that, what do you guys think of Iowa and Penn State?
I love this game. Honestly.
I do too. I'm excited for
Yeah,
this one.
they're evenly ranked. I mean, and Penn so if Penn State loses this game, they run the risk of having just an incredibly mediocre year. They would fall to 5-3. Here's the thing: it's at Iowa though, and they haven't really fared well there lately. And I don't know if the tables are exactly going to turn today. So I'm just going to go with Iowa.
All right, well, I'm also going with Iowa on this one. That one was pretty simple for me. They have a really, really good defense. I mean, they held Iowa State to 3 and Maryland to 0. This is the same Maryland that beat Texas, so I just wanted to point that out. But Trace McSorley for Penn State, very overhyped. Like,
I agree.
Extremely
100%.
Extremely overhyped Josh Callaway. And I mean, he's going to run the ball. He's notorious for that, but Iowa is easily going to stop them. They are number 2 in the nation for rushing defense. So this is easy, Iowa for me.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Iowa as well. We just talked about McSorley being not clutch.
Right.
And I call him McSorley this week because Iowa is going to have his head spinning when they just clock it repeatedly over and over again. Iowa's defense is amazing. They had another shutout last week. They are playing against a Penn State team who has nearly lost a 3rd game in a row. They just beat Indiana by 5, which would have been a big upset for Indiana. Obviously, Penn State has more offensive weapons, and McSorley is a dual-threat quarterback, whether you like it or not. I just think that he runs a lot because he can't throw that well. But
it's probably true.
He's not going to be able to get it done against his defense, the best defense they've seen all year. He's going to have to rely on throwing the ball because Iowa's run defense is the most stout run defense I've seen this entire season. They have not allowed one rushing touchdown through the tackles in the red zone, which is incredible. The entire season to not allow that in a conference that runs the ball way more than they throw the ball. And Penn State's been shaky all year, and I just think Iowa's going to lock them down and win a very, very close game, but Iowa gets it done. And I would take the under in this game if you're betting.
Well, you know, this game might not be that close if Penn State has another 100-plus snaps on defense again.
Yeah,
that's what
that's
they had
true.
last. That's ridiculous.
I think Oklahoma could
tired.
use some tips
Get
from
them some
Iowa.
water.
Yeah, probably still
we'll
trying to catch
see.
their breath from last week.
We'll see. Well, what about Washington State and Stanford?
Yeah, so Stanford has a pretty. I don't like their defense. I believe it's at the 11th ranked in the Pac-12 in terms of passing defense.
They started off hot, too.
They
kind of just.
Another
did.
preseason hype.
But in a sense, it's kind of a bend but don't break because they've only allowed 4 passing touchdowns in the red zone. So, I mean, I guess they're forcing field goals when it matters most. But here's the thing. Stanford has Bryce Love. Now, he was listed as day-to-day. It'll be interesting to see how he performs today, but I think Bryce Love is the key here, and I'm going to go with Stanford.
Okay,
yeah, I mean, Washington State's defense isn't going to really put a stop to you on offense. It doesn't really matter what team you are on. So, obviously, a player of that talent can do some damage this week.
I have to go with Washington State over Stanford for the same person, Bryce Love. I mean, he's day-to-day. I don't think he's going to play much today at all. He hasn't been what I thought he was going to be, and honestly, I mean, he was my Heisman.
Anybody has thought he was going to be.
Exactly. He was my Heisman pick like the first week, and he's just it just hasn't been exactly. And so I think this one's going to be a close one. But with J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, I mean, that helps Stanford a lot. Yeah. But Washington State has, I mean, they put up the numbers just as well. So I think it's going to be a close one, but I do think that Washington State's going to pull it out.
Yeah. They might be without their senior cornerback. That's a big deal.
It's true.
It could be.
I'm also going to go with Washington State in this game. Lauren and I actually
I can't believe we
agreed
on all
every
3.
single pick
this never
week.
happens.
That's
I'm
beautiful.
so shocked.
Stanford's favored in this game, And I'm really not sure why. They haven't played very good of late or of all year, really, outside of the first 2 weeks of the season. And Gardner Minshew is a very good quarterback.
23
touchdowns. 23
like
touchdowns.
I have the same thing.
2,745 yards. That's a lot. And they just came off a very big win at Oregon last week. So they're riding the high horse. They're feeling good. They're riled up. And Stanford has been disappointing. They know, what are they playing for?
Yeah,
like what
exactly.
They really don't have a ceiling right now that they want to be at. And Washington State is just happy to be there. They're a team that no one expects to win the Pac-12, and they can.
Yeah.
They can win the Pac-12.
Yeah.
And they can get a very good bowl game, and that air raid offense is looking ripe right now. It's looking great. I don't think Stanford's going to be able to keep up with it, honestly.
Yeah.
I think they're going to get torched, and they might actually give up some more red zone touchdowns than they've had all year. They might give up more than 4. Who knows? Minshew can sling it, so
Yeah.
I'm going Washington State.
It's 2 average teams right here. I mean, it's like it's going to be close, I think.
Okay, well, I like where you guys are going. Do you have any upset picks?
Yes.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, we had to. We had to come in with one.
Okay.
So
And we wanted
Let's hear it.
this one would actually hurt OU.
It's okay.
It could be Oklahoma State over Texas, and this is why. Ellinger does have a shoulder injury.
And you need that to throw.
You do need that
You
to
need
throw.
that.
Otherwise.
Kind of. I mean, he
kinda.
could switch arms maybe if he
Sometimes.
wanted to. I don't know.
Mahomes did it.
Just decides to just throw with
This is
the other
true.
arm.
The game's also at Oklahoma State, and it is their homecoming, and so you can expect the atmosphere to just be
Yeah,
raucous.
homecomings usually go great for them.
Oh.
Okay, well, moving on. My pick is going to be Syracuse over NC State. NC State, one of those just overhyped schools. Again, I feel like I've used that word so much today, but it's true. I mean, they're coming off a terrible loss to Clemson by 34 points. And Syracuse seems to be the one to kind of pull out those wins when they really need them. So I'm going to go Syracuse over NC State. I think they might use Tommy DeVito today like they used when they beat UNC in double overtime. So, I mean, I think it might be close, but I still think that Syracuse might be able to pull out this upset.
Yeah, I mean, they've been close to a lot of tough teams all year, so I don't see a reason why they can't be tough.
Were neck and neck with Clemson.
Yeah,
so
they
who just killed NC State.
Who's going to beat Bama?
Syracuse has kind of been they've been pinned as like a team that can cause an upset now because they've done it before. They've been close a lot of times. So
yeah, I mean, he
they're
had him earlier, so
they're going to
my
beat Notre
upset
Dame.
pick is a game that I think is going to be very exciting to watch. I think you're going to have a lot of fun if you're able to catch it. Houston versus South Florida. They're going to be a lot of points to be scored in this game. Houston's averaging 48 points a game, which is incredible. That's so many points. And Derek King has 2,000 yards passing, 23 touchdowns, and just 3 interceptions, which is very phenomenal numbers. That's a pretty good ratio. I'll take that any day for my quarterback. And Ed Oliver on the defensive side, a potential #1 overall pick, definitely probably going to be a top 5 pick. That dude is a generational talent. He's a monster. And you get to watch him play. It's going to be a shootout. I think Houston's going to win. I think Houston actually is a better team than South Florida. And I think they're going to show it today, and they're going to beat that 21-ranked South Florida team.
Yeah, I really like
Houston's
that
taking
pick a lot. I agree with that one.
I love that pick for obvious reasons, Spencer.
Yeah, Houston boy.
Okay.
Hey,
well,
OU's still playing. Right?
Let's move it to Norman. What do you guys think about the game today?
You know, one thing that impressed me, so the OU defense really stepped it up big time. And throughout the week, we heard Coach Ruffin McNeil say, oh, if it's too difficult, I'll throw it out the playbook. I just want them to read and react. And that's what they did. In fact, in that first touchdown, or the first offensive touchdown, I guess I should say, scored by TCU, like the play or two before that should have been a pick 6 to the house.
Oh, yeah.
You know? And outside of those last couple of minutes in that first half.
Like 4 minutes.
Yeah, they played phenomenal. And that's TCU, and we have overreacted to how good we think OU's defense is going to be in the past. But it's off to a very promising start.
Yeah. Kind of playing off of that, well, not really playing off of that because I'm going to go with the offensive side of the ball. Last week, I really liked the run game that I saw because I think, you know, even though Trey Sermon's hurt, we're still not exactly sure what's happening with him. But we saw so much from freshman Kennedy Brooks. And if we see the same out of Marcellus Sutton, I know that the remote team touched on this a little bit earlier. But that can be a total game changer and the rest of a season changer for the Sooners because obviously, I mean, we know that deep they have really good weapons. But in the backfield, they struggled a little bit. So especially with the whole Rodney Anderson and maybe now Trey Sermon. So run game today, I hope to see it, you know, even better than last week against TCU.
Yeah, I was very impressed with the run game last week. Obviously, it hasn't been what people thought it was, even though, like, the running backs on our team are averaging, like,
exactly.
over 5 yards a carry, right?
People give them so much, they don't give them enough credit.
Hey, and last year, the team that we broke out, that OU broke the run game out against, was Kansas State. Rodney Anderson had that freak first performance, and then just he just carried that, literally carried it, right, all the way through the rest of the season. And maybe that can happen again this year. Obviously, they were very good last week, but if they can improve on it this week and have an even better performance against a Kansas State team, then getting the run game going is going to be incredible for this team moving forward, a team with one of the most potent offenses in all of college football. And I think that Kansas State really isn't going to be able to do much to stop it. OU's offense is good enough to where their defense doesn't even have to be that good in most games, as we know so well. And their defense is playing better as of now. And I think that they have a fire. Obviously, those players have been criticized a lot, right? So they don't want to go out and play bad for this new coach, and then people are going to be like, oh, it's the players' fault. So I think OU's going to win 48-27 in this game, and they're going to get it done up. I mean, that's a dub, past the sticks, 21 points.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to go 48-21, so I'm with you there.
I'm going
pretty close.
52-24. You know, Joseph Quinn said it's like throwing darts at a board. I'd like to point out that I actually got the score correct.
You did last
time
year.
I was in here. 38-20 against TCU.
Oh.
You did.
Maybe you'll get it. Maybe you win this one too.
I will.
All right,
probably.
let's see it.
There's no doubting that.
Well, all right, guys. Thank you for joining us today on Game Day U. Make sure to watch us next week as OU plays Texas Tech. Same time, same place. Have a great game day.